in. Sorry, I was late. How are you guys?
I'm doing okay.
I read your report. Well, I didn't read your whole report, but that was pretty cool. What you guys getting quoted in that? Was it National Instruments who funded that or sponsored that big, thick document?
You talking about the Danfoss tractor?
Yeah.
I don't know. I didn't really notice what it was. They just took a stock picture and a couple of stock comments and put that together. So, but yeah, it's amazing to see it showing up somewhere. So
It's pretty cool. Matt, anything you want to start with today from what's going on in your world?
Open.
Open?
Yep.
Hoping? H-O-P-I-N-G?
Open.
Open.
Working on the simulator, adding the sonar sensors into that.
That's cool.
Ultrasonic.
And are you doing 2 in the front, 2 in the back, or 4 in the front, none in the back? What are you thinking?
Yeah, we start with maybe 4 in front or 2 in front, and then maybe none in back, and we'll see how it goes. Or maybe all 8, and then you can turn on and off whichever ones you want to use.
Cool. Would you like me to print you a teensy holder by chance? I'm not joking. I'm serious, man. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, yeah, maybe. Once I am kind of superstitious, so once I get all the electronics working, and then in that box, I don't like to open the box. But next time I go through it, which will be the next time, yes.
Yeah, so this, can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet? I'm not sharing then correctly. How about now? Well, you're seeing probably yourself, maybe. Oh, why do I get so frustrated with this? Bear with me. Screen 2, share. Are you seeing anything now?
Yep.
What are you seeing?
It's a picture of your TC 3.5 and the 2.
Go. So you don't, I mean, that's the top. And I was just going to confirm with you that you think it's okay to wire this thing the way that I've wired it before I ultimately soldered it, but that's what I was hoping to do this weekend, was actually get it soldered down and plugged in and start testing it. But if you want one, let me know.
That's really cool. I guess I was wondering, I don't know, Jeff may have a better opinion, but when you start adding capacitors and resistors in there, do you want like a little piece of, I guess, through holes to solder those components on?
I'm, you guys are going to be probably smarter about that than I am. The capacitor that you had suggested for, I forget which one of these lines needs a capacitor. I mean, I was literally going to take the capacitor and wire it to one terminal and then wire it to the second terminal, but certainly a through-hole pin, PCB board would be cleaner. I did this purely. Go ahead.
Well, something in between, kind of have the teensy board and then have the like a proto board in between, maybe a 5-hole proto board, and then that rail on the outside.
Yeah, that's a really good idea too. Yeah, I like that. I don't, Jeff, do you have what have you seen as far as hanging electronics in a sort of disciplined manner that works well?
I guess probably what I would have done is soldered pins onto your board and then plug that into like another perf board or something. That's the way I do it, but I normally don't hang it in free space there like you're doing.
That that I'll share the screen again. It's not completely in free space. It is. Underneath it, there's a 8 mm wide. Why can't I find my share button again?
Jeff, what do you think about the 3.5 with headers and then into a socket?
Well, that's the way I would normally do it if I was going to use those, as opposed to just soldering the wires on, like you did and like Al's planning to do.
Yeah, because I ended up I've broken 2 Teensy boards so far, and so when that happens, having a socket would make it a lot easier to swap parts.
And the other problem you have with these boards when you solder the pins on, a short board isn't too bad. You solder the pins on if you want to plug it into one of the plug-in proto boards, that goes in fairly well. But as the board gets longer, so like this 3.5, which is what, almost 3 inches long, that's a lot of pins, and it's hard to get that line up in your socket board. Now, one way around that is to plug the pins into your socket board first, and then put your little board on and solder the pins, and that way you're going to have the correct alignment. I don't like to do that because the extra heat on the proto board can melt the plastic on it. But here's a case where you're better off doing that, especially if you plug it in the board first and you solder it down and then leave it there, and then when you're done, you pry it out if you need to do anything else. So it depends on whether you're going to put it in one of the plug-in proto boards, or you can you use a piece of perf board and solder wires in the back, which is what I typically do. But for somebody that doesn't do this stuff a lot, they may not be comfortable with building stuff that way.
Yeah,
So here's what I think I'm hearing.
You can buy them with the headers pre-soldered, and that's a pretty big chunk to be soldering.
It is. I don't know if they have some kind of a soldering jig when they do that, so you're pretty well guaranteed they're gonna go into the socket. It's just when you try to push it into those plug-in boards that it's just hard to get. The longer it is, the harder it is to get it to go into those boards. And I've never bought one with the pre-soldered pins, so I don't know how well they're aligned.
So what I'm hearing is a more robust solution would be to get a teensy, what do you call that, mounting, the mounting base for a teensy with all the pins in it?
Well, you can buy the teensy that already has the pins soldered into it, so it just has pins sticking out the bottom, and then you plug it into whatever you want. Is that your question, or?
Yeah, so you're suggesting put pins on the teensy, slide the teensy with the pins in it into another holder, that holder be on a perf board, and the connections be made at that perf board. Is that what I'm hearing?
I guess so, yeah. And I think you're going to find that you're trying to plan this out to the exact detail, but I think you're going to have to experiment and try to see what it does, because as you try, you'll decide what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, and I was just trying to have it something a little bit more repeatable than, I'm just imagining Colin saying, hey, go get a teensy and make it all work. And I'm just trying to make it a little bit clearer. But
another option is we could make a printed circuit board for this, and it'll be the Ross Agriculture printed circuit board. You just plug the thing into it and go that way. So it'd be a matter of you'd have to solder sockets onto this board and then plug the teensy into that, and if you have connectors on it or whatever.
This looks neat. if you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see it.
It solves as purpose of screwing or using screw terminals, while also it has this. And as Jeff just mentioned, we can just make one like this, a Ross Agriculture Teensy board with these on. All you have to do is solder this guy and these guys, and then you can snap fit your Teensy on it.
Can you put that back up?
Oh, yeah.
And have you seen one for a Teensy 3.5?
I haven't yet.
Yeah, I mean, because I would have absolutely 100% used that.
But this was just a quick search.
Oh, if you go to that website, do they maybe have ones for the other boards?
Oh, that's just $4.
Maybe down at the bottom, he'll say if he has other ones.
Oh, he has just two of them.
I posted a link in the chat of one.
Definitely.
The one addition on Al's is that he has a bracket that supports the USB cable, and that's really nice.
Yeah.
There's a lot of vibration, so tacking that down, securing that. Strain relief, I guess, is the technical term.
On that one that you just posted, Matt, what's the intention of that? It looks like you got a board plugged into a printed circuit board which has other pins coming out the bottom. Is that an adapter or something? Or
I think it's builds the
they call it a breakout board, but I don't see why you've got pins to pins, and then you're still at the same point where you just have pins sticking out the bottom.
maybe that one you can solder down to a board. This would allow you to take out the 3.5 and put a different 3.5 in.
Huh.
Yeah, I think I'm going to definitely get one of those that Matt, did you post the URL or was it someone that posted the URL? Wherever that was, the ND thing. Yeah, Matt,
Yeah.
the 10D thing.
So Matt posted a link about the socket. This is what I saw, or this is the store I looked at, but that one was for something else or another Teensy, I believe. It was for, oh well, though it does work with Teensy 3X boards as well. So this one works with Teensy 3 boards as well. So that could be nice.
But it would be the 3.2 or 3.1, which is the short board, so it's not the
Right,
long ones.
I guess so.
Anyway, it could be some searching. It would turn up various things you could use for it.
Yeah, and if anything, if we have a proto board, we can make something like this. It doesn't have to have this. I mean, we don't need to minimize the number of holes on there. We can have as many holes as we want, as long as it does the job, right?
Right.
We can just use a proto board, put it on there, solder our terminals, and be done with it. No problem.
Cool. Well, I mean, it's, my other news is not new news. You've heard me say it again, unfortunately, is I'm trying to track down my welder and not having much luck. So he's not replying to my texts. So I may have to go rescue my rescue my lawn tractor and find another welder. We'll see. So, anything else going on in your world?
I'm waiting for my Teensy to come in. Meanwhile, I have the setup working, or as you can see.
Those look like ultrasonic sensors.
Yeah, I set them up, and I was trying to use the Arduino, but then I realized that I lost my Arduino cable when I was trying to move. But I have it set up. I'm just waiting to connect these wires to a Teensy and, have something working. But yeah, I have these sensors like this and waiting for, or I'll be receiving or looking for a signal from each of those and put them in an OR gate, I believe. So if any of those sensors pick up, so we're going to be reading from all the 4 sensors at the same time, I think, I hope. And if any one of those sensors picks up a reading that's less than a threshold, then it's going to turn on this light. Is the idea.
So
I
you
have
were
a
thinking
LED.
physically to implement a physical OR gate, or were you going to do that in software?
Software.
Also, keep in mind with these sensors, you may have to trigger them one at a time and don't trigger them all at once, because that'll confuse it on the echoes coming back. So you might have to do one and wait for a response, and do the next one and wait for a response, and so forth down the line. So that's something to keep in mind.
Okay. Yeah. Can you give me more information about why that is? How I should approach it?
Well, because the sonar, when you pulse it, it puts out like a 15-degree cone of sound, and if you've got if you fire them all at the same time, the receiver can't determine which one actually sent that sound pulse out. So what you have to do is just wire it up so you can have a receive pin of each board connected to your Teensy. So you go out and you say sensor number 1, trigger it and wait for a response to come back, and then move on to the next one and say trigger that one and wait for a response to come back, and that way they don't interfere with each other. So if you wire each one separately up to your Teensy, then you've got control over how you want to do that.
Right. That's the plan. I have them set up differently. I'm powering them over the same power line, and then the power and ground is just a common, and I'm connecting them to each of them to that, and then there's echo and trigger. So each echo and trigger would go into a separate PWM pin, or an IO pin.
Right.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Cool. Jeff, anything else going on in your world you want to share?
I've got pieces cut to do my front end of my mini tractor, so I've got some metal pieces cut that I need to weld onto my front axle, and I'm going to try to put that Super Servo 200 on that, and maybe I can get around to that this weekend. I'll see. And my power steering unit showed up, and there's no controller on it, so it's pretty much worthless to me at this point.
So do you think that was false advertising, or it was just unclear, or
Well,
not available, or
the problem is some of these come with the controller bolted right to this power steering unit, like the ones that you got, and other ones that have the controller mounted somewhere else. And I looked at his eBay auction multiple times. He didn't mention a controller at all, so it's really, I was just taking a chance on that he was going to send me that, and turns out he didn't. So, and when I look at other ones that have an actual picture of what you're getting, the ones that have a controller bolted to it, they're all up around $100. They're like twice as much they want for them. So basically, it's my fault for not either contacting me ahead of time and saying, am I going to get a controller? And if he would have said no, then I could just gone somewhere else. So But no, it's just, since I just had a picture of a car and he said you're getting a power steering unit, that's what I had to go by.
And so have you seen anybody selling the motor and the controller clearly for a couple $100? Is that what you said?
Well, for around 115, I think is what.
Because I had tried to look up, or I thought I remember looking up the URL that you sent through, and it was 115 bucks. And I'm like, hey, wow, that's just for the motor without the controller.
Let me look here. Like, for instance, let's see, how can I do this? I'll post this link. Well, no, I'm not going to post this link. How do I get my screen back? Share. This one. Okay, I assume that's showing up. So here's one for 115, and if you look at the pictures there, it does have a controller bolted on the back of it, and here's showing a picture of the controller. So for that price, you do get the motor and the controller together, and he's got some extra cables hanging out. I'm not sure, because it would be annoying if they don't give you the cables to plug in, because you have to track down a connector for it. So, and it's got some cables hanging out, but I can't tell if they're extra cables. Probably what they're going to do is just unplug it on the car and leave the cables hanging there, and then just ship you whatever they've got. And it could be if they're stripping a car to sell parts, they could. If you say, "Can I get the cables?" All they do is take a wire cutter and cut them off. And some of them you look at actually have. You can see from looking at it there's cables hanging out to be used. But all these extra cables here, I'm not sure where they're not plugged in, so you can't tell where they go.
But you think this is more, I'm going to use the word hackable.
That was my thought, and it looked like they were saying the torque sensor puts out a voltage as opposed to this two-phase sine wave thing you'd have to try to duplicate. And it was based on this thing that Matt had posted, where they have something to control a car. So that I was thinking that possibly would do the job, and for $45 that I paid, I thought that was worth trying it out. But then I didn't get a controller, so that kind of stopped me right there. So I guess that's the only two things I got going on right now.
Cool. Colin, anything you want to share? Okay, guys. Well, we'll call it a day then. We'll see everybody on the Slack channel. Matt, you asked a question about me next. I was going to try to do a desk check of the transducers and work something up that's just jury rigged to try to get a reading on the transducers and feed that into the Teensy. Make sure I can do that. That would be while I'm waiting on my tractor to be delivered. That's my next step.
It's good. It's getting close.
It feels like a million miles away, but I'm glad you have confidence. And I do have a new set of GPS units. They just happen to be delivered to a mailing address in Texas instead of Pennsylvania. So my sad saga continues.
It's piece by piece.
Yeah.
You can break down the mission to the moon in 2 steps. It's getting there and getting back. But instead of saying that the goal obviously is to get the self-driving tractor, but having smaller goals along the way maybe make us feel better. Getting control of the motor, being able to send in a command, like a ROS command, and get the motor turning left and right, getting control of the steering, that's a big celebration. And getting your wheel encoders working and getting the sensors back, that's a big celebration. Those are big steps.
That all good leaders, they remind us to break things down. Good, that's a good reminder that it is step by step. Okay, guys, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you in the Slack channel.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Likewise.